I want to talk to you today about the interactive read aloud. The interactive read aloud is not a part of the reading workshop, but it is a separate time, maybe 5 to 10 minutes that you can find to read with kids. And one of the things that Dr. Richard Ellington talks about is that if we wish to help children and adolescents become thoughtfully literate, classroom talk around text is critical, and that's what the interactive read aloud does for our kids. Read alouds with children is known to be the most important activity for building the knowledge and skills they will eventually require for learning to read. This is a quote from Marilyn Adams. And I went to a workshop recently where it talked about that the read aloud done correctly, where the teacher is reading a text to students and them interacting, having open-ended questions, is one of the most critical things in developing the comprehension levels of kids and their skills, and it's better than maybe 30 minutes of intervention because of the interaction and the communication between the teacher and the student concerning the text. So let's talk about building deep comprehension with our kids. We do this during close reading, but the read aloud is when you take a book that is a little bit above their level and it's truly interactive, and that you read the book aloud to them, and then you invite them to participate through making comments, extending the ideas of their peers, maybe trying to talk about what you think about that, and then asking and responding to questions that you have as you have prepared to read that book to them. So this is some of the research between Holt and Lamanak and all of these different folks, that it's been something that's been very researched, that if you're not doing a read aloud in your room, I really encourage you to do. And of course, we always think about Marie Clay and what she says. And she says that meaning can be negotiated in discussion before, during, and after the story reading. Read aloud to students should include think aloud or interactive elements and focus intentionally on the meaning within the text, about the text, and beyond the text. Read aloud as part of the gradual release responsibility feeds naturally into shared, guided, and independent reading as teachers demonstrate for students the ways the reading process works. So what that means is this read aloud time is maybe 5 to 10 minutes where you are reading them a book that you really feel like is something they're going to enjoy. And then you can also talk about the skills, but it's not a teaching lesson, it's a discussion around the book. But it also can lend itself to what you are going to do during the mini lesson, like, inferencing or character analysis. I mean, it can lend itself because you're going to develop the questions you're going to want to ask them as you read the book. So it can lend itself into your mini lesson and also into the guided reading, and then even into when you send them off to independently read. So, today during Read Aloud, we talked about character analysis and how the character changes over time. So as you're reading independently today, see if your character does this. So here's some of the benefits that, once again, is it builds vocabulary, because sometimes you are talking and asking rich vocabulary, and this is an opportunity for an English language learner to say, I don't understand what that means. What's that word mean? And so this is a type during a read aloud that they get asked questions like that. As they help you as you read stories to them, it gives their brain the ability to start thinking about how stories are structured. Um, it supports developing connections between print elements. And then as they talk, it encourages high levels of understanding. And as you do a read aloud, you're teaching the reading process in a meaningful context. And you, as a teacher, as reading it, are modeling that fluency that you want them. You're going to be reading with expression, and all those things that you're going to model and what you want them to see. And what that does is, once you read a book, that really motivates them to want to read more too. So when do you do it? So we've already said read alouds are not part of reading workshop. It's a separate time. It's finding that 5 to 10 minutes where you can bring students to the rug and share a book, poem, or a section of a book. All kinds of genre. You want that to be all different kinds. A lot of times we think about this is when we read a novel to them, and that's all right, but we also may just want to read a really interesting poem, and then you're going to make sure that you have open-ended questions that you've prepared ahead of time as you read the book to ask kids to talk about. So what are some of the resources? Well, you want to pick text for read alouds that are about the edge of their speaking vocabulary. That usually means a grade or two above their grade level. So any great books that maybe that they're not able to read, but you want them to enjoy the stories and those type of things. In our libraries, we do have Linda Hoyt's interactive read alouds, and those are some great activities in those books. We've had these, I've shown you these in curriculum previews before. We also have one for 4 and 5. And a lot of you use these during your mini lessons, but I think it gives you kind of an interaction, some of the type of questions that you might ask during a read aloud. So if you want to learn more about it, this is a great link, and I will put this PowerPoint where you can get to it. Read, Write, and Think has it's just talking about read alouds, and where I've got some of this information for this short video. This link will take you to some lesson guides for that as well. So what I want you to do now after this is I want you to watch the Big Ideas on the Interactive Read Aloud video clip. And this is just a trainer talking about what are some of the things we do during a read aloud. And I know that you already do them, but it's just so important that this is a rich way to really have deep meaning. And researchers are telling us this is a very essential part of them learning to read, and all the way through 5th grade is extremely important. So I look forward to what you're going to learn about interactive reading.